This video is for two groups of people. One of these groups of people are going to be extremely triggered by what I'm about to say. The other group is going to feel extremely validated by what I'm about to say. So, how do I say this right? Intellect, your mind, is not the highest form of intelligence that you can use in life. I've considered myself a very intellectual person, and I've used my mind most of my life to navigate life, to think about problems, to think deeply, to contemplate things so that I can understand things and approach life better. This is the approach that I've had up to this point. People like me, people who consider themselves highly intellectual, tend to make very poor decisions or tend to not make enough decisions. While people who don't think nearly as much tend to do more and actually tend to experience more out of life than people who think too much. So if you're somebody who's considered yourself not so smart, maybe you don't consider yourself part of the intellectual team and you felt like you're missing out on life, you're not. Thinking is minimally required here. And for those of you who love thinking and have used thinking as a crutch and an interface for living life, you're not going to like this because it's challenging the tool that you've placed your entire life in, all of your faith. A lot of us who think very much don't really know what we would do without thinking. We can't even fathom a life without thinking. We feel like we would be disabled. What I'm here to offer you is not a life without any thinking at all. You don't have to throw away your intellectual prowess. And in fact, it's not useless. It's very, very advantageous if you can learn the art of not thinking, of moving through life in a way that doesn't constantly analyze every situation so that you can make sure you're doing it right, or so you can make sure that something isn't going to go wrong. It causes hesitation. Overthinking is what people call it. I want you to realize, and I had this realization for myself pretty recently in my life, that you can just do things, that you don't have to wait until the right moment, even though your mind is trying to say that you do need to wait for the right moment, and the right moment is here. Notice that that's your thinking mind. You're not actually your thinking mind, and I'll prove this to you right now. Right now, maybe you're thinking about what I'm saying. I want you to take your awareness and move it to your right foot, and just focus on the feeling in your right foot. And notice that feeling your right foot doesn't require any thinking. You might start thinking about the feeling in your right foot, but feeling your right foot takes no thinking at all. Now I want you to clench and unclench your hand, and you just do this really fast. And notice that you don't even have time to think in between the clenches and unclenching. And in fact, it's just happening. You're just doing it. You can live most of life with that same emptiness. And in fact, you'll live life so much more present, so much more intimately, and you'll make better decisions. Because people who consider themselves highly intellectual reject this thing called intuition. Because intuition is not very logical. Intuition does not feel very scientific. Intuition is something hard to grab a hold of. It's not concrete. And so a lot of us intellectuals, we reject that as woo-woo, airy-fairy. Let those intuition people do their intuition. I'm going to do my hard science. I'm going to do my factual checking, my Googling, whatever. But you're missing a very important part of life. And in fact, you're missing a much higher form of intelligence than intellect, because intuition harnesses the power of your subconscious mind. It harnesses the power of everything that you know holistically and can conjure insights. You'll notice, and if you do notice this, I want you to notice this, that the intellect does not have the power to conjure insights. You can sit there and think about a problem all day long and stress about a problem. You'll go to bed thinking about that problem, letting it churn over and over and over in your mind. And then the next morning, you'll wake up, you'll be brushing your teeth, and then all of a sudden, you'll have the answer to that problem. But what happens is the intellectual mind likes to take credit for that. Likes to say, oh, it's because I did all that thinking yesterday. No, that's not why you got the insight. The reason you got the insight is because you finally stopped thinking. Start to notice when you get these insights. Every time you have one, an aha moment. And you'll notice that these insights only occur in moments where you're not thinking. Or if you are thinking, it's because you're thinking out of flow state. You're not intentionally thinking. You're maybe just on a walk and thoughts are just happening and you're not really trying to intentionally think or overthink about something, and then boom, insight happens. Because intuition happens in that still space of openness and receiving within yourself, within your mind. And when you're constantly trying to penetrate the world with your mind, trying to think about everything, you don't leave room for anything else to enter your mind. You're filling it up with all of your thinking, and you're so convinced that this thinking is doing something for you that you just stay in this cycle. And a lot of people experience a very slow burn progression in life because they're constantly going through these cycles of overthinking for weeks and weeks and weeks, finally letting it go. Something finally shifts. They're like, oh my God, thank God, I don't even know how this happened, but they give credit to the thinking mind. So they go back to thinking, and then it just creates these cycles. Some people, I've gone through cycles of months of just overthinking about one specific feeling that I had in my chest that I called a rut. Right? I had this feeling in my chest that I called a rut, and I'm thinking and I'm trying to solve it and I'm analyzing and da-da-da-da-da-da. And when I finally gave up and said, screw it, this is just how I feel, I don't even care anymore, that feeling processed. And it wasn't even like I had some grand insight. Sometimes the feeling just processes and you just gain clarity. All of a sudden, you don't feel like you're in a rut anymore. You just know what to do next. Oh, I can do this. Oh, I can do that. I just had a rut recently and I had this realization that I can just do things because I was overthinking about what I need to do. Oh, I make content this way, or do I need to make content that way? Or do I need to maybe go down this route? Maybe I need to create a marketing agency instead. All these different ideas, and they were presenting themselves. I was having opportunities present themselves in my life. And instead of just taking those opportunities and going with them and seeing where they go, I was thinking to the point of stagnation. I wasn't making decisions. And then it dawned on me. I'm capable of making a decision without thinking. And then I can let the data of that decision dictate what other decisions I make. So if I am overthinking about taking my camera out into a public park, like I am now, because maybe people will see me, maybe people will think funny things about me, that could stop me from taking my camera to the park, even though maybe I had an idea to do that. An insight, an intuition. And maybe there's a good reason I have an intuition to do that. Because maybe taking my camera to the forest where I feel at home, where I feel energized, is going to put me in the right energetic state to convey this message to you in the most effective way. Maybe that's why I felt like I wanted to come here. But if I let the thinking mind come in and say, well, people might see you and they might judge you and da-da-da-da-da, which I've done many, many times in my life, I end up not coming to the forest. I end up doing it in my room or somewhere else. And there's this feeling of letting myself down because I know deep down that I wanted to go do the thing that was outside of my comfort zone. But I didn't let myself because my overthinking mind came in and convinced me that this is the way it's going to go. Because the thinking mind thinks that it can predict the future. Your mind wants to predict the future. It wants to take the variables that you're aware of right now and construct a scenario of what it thinks is going to happen. But I want you to notice that nothing ever plays out exactly how you think it will. Some things play out very similarly to how you thought it will, but the actual experience of it playing out in your body somatically is completely different than how you envisioned it in your thinking. I also want you to notice, how many times have you thought that something really bad is going to happen if you went and did something? Maybe you wanted to go talk to a stranger and you had this thought like, it could go bad. They could make fun of me, whatever. They might think I'm weird. And you just did it anyways, and it went great. How many times has that happened? Is that not proof that your mind is not actually capable of predicting the future? Yet we treat our overthinking, our premonitions about the future that our mind comes up with, as if they're factual. We feel them in our body and we allow them to dictate our decisions. What I want you to become open to is that maybe you don't have to actually let that dictate your decisions. Maybe you don't actually have to listen to that thought and that feeling, and you can just say, oh, wait, This is what I do. That's just my thinking mind. Is that true? I don't actually know if that's true. And then you just do. And then you let the doing tell you if that's true or not. See, you won't actually know until you do. You won't actually know if you can do it until you try. And you've heard it before, you've heard it a million times, but maybe you just haven't really seen this illusion that the thinking mind is creating for you. And I hope that the way that I explained this is starting to let you see that you don't need to wait. You don't need to think so much about whether you're doing it right or whether it's the right time. You'll realize how free you are. Like, notice how freeing this is. I hope you are feeling that right now, because maybe you're feeling some shame. Maybe you're feeling like, why have I been doing this to myself all this time? See, I knew it. I knew I could have just been doing it, and I'll probably do it again. I'll probably make the same mistakes. Notice that that is also your thinking mind, because shame, this feeling of shame, this feeling of self-condemnation, is a tool that your thinking mind actually uses. You don't actually need to feel ashamed, but your thinking mind uses shame as a tool to bring you back to baseline, to bring you back to what you're comfortable with. Because if your thinking mind can convince you that, yeah, this is just the way I am and I'm just screwed up and I should feel bad about it, guess what happens? You end up doing the same thing that you did before. You don't end up changing anything. Notice that that's not you. That shame, that's not you. You don't even know where that's coming from, right? Don't identify with that. Don't believe that. It's bullshit. You don't need to feel ashamed, right? You didn't know any better. If you didn't make a decision before, it's because you didn't realize that you had the option. And if you realize you have the option now, don't feel shame that you didn't fully realize you had the option before. Just make the decision now. Whatever that decision is in your life, whatever you feel like you've been holding yourself back from or not letting yourself experience, choose. You don't even, even if you feel like it's impossible to do it right now, choose that you will keep trying until you figure it out. Because that's still a choice too. And that is actually very important. That is the first choice that I made when I started to become more conscious. I realized that my life wasn't what I wanted it to. It wasn't what I wanted it to be, but I had no clue what I wanted it to be, and I had no clue how to get there. And that was so daunting. That was so intimidating. It's like, okay, where do I even start? But I knew that something had to change, and I knew the only way it was going to change is if I decided that I was going to figure it out. And so I made a decision, a firm decision, because I wanted it, that I'm going to figure it out. And no matter what comes my way, no matter how long I feel stuck, I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep trying to learn. I'm going to keep trying to figure it out. I've had fears that have lasted me years. I still have fears that have been with me for years. And I'm so determined to overcome those fears that even though those fears have followed me for years, and I've overcome a lot of them, I have to give myself props. I've overcome a lot of my fears. Many fears have taken me years to overcome. You have to have that kind of conviction and determination, because this is your life. This is your life. You do not want to get to the end of your life and realize that you had all these choices and you just chose not to do anything about it. You chose to let the fear dictate you and dictate what you do and dictate your entire life. You can choose right now to not let the fear. And it's okay if, like I said, it's okay if you don't feel like, if it's too overwhelming. Start with small fears. Start with the next uncomfortable thing that you can do. Build that momentum, because the more you do things outside of your comfort zone, the more alive you feel. Trust me, try it. You will feel it. And if you live your days without doing things that make you uncomfortable, you won't be living. You will feel dead inside. And I know that because I have lived my life that way before. And I can no longer live that. I can't live my life that way, because if I try to go back to the way I used to do things, and this should motivate you, because once you actually start, you can't stop. If I tried to go back to the way that I used to live life, mundane and not really participating in life, I would experience so much suffering within myself. I would be forced to do something. I wouldn't have a choice. Once you get that ball rolling, it's inevitable. You will experience success. You will experience the greatest experiences that you could possibly have in this life. This life is so juicy. This life has so much to offer you. And I want you to experience that, and I want you to feel that. And I know you want to experience and feel that too. So that's my rant. That's my little lesson for you. I hope that inspired you. I hope that made sense to you. I trust that, man. I know that made sense to you. What am I talking about? Fuck. And I hope you're not shaming yourself. I hope... Nah, fuck this hope shit, bro. Go do your thing, twin. Go do your thing. If you want one-on-one coaching, the link is in the description. I love you guys. Peace.